Are you looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this football and basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select two or more players, pick more or less on their projections for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the PrizePicks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/bluewire and use code BLUEWIRE. That's code BLUEWIRE at prizepicks.com/bluewire for a first deposit match of up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Hello, Mavs fans. Welcome to Pod Mavericks Presents After Dark. The Dallas Mavericks just fell to the Chicago Bulls in their second to last game of the season, 115-112. I am joined, as usual, by my partner and co-editor over at MavsMoneyball.com, Josh Bowe. How are you, Joe? Josh.
Good start. You can call me whatever you want. I feel like 1,000 pounds have been lifted off my shoulders. I'm free.
You're
it's
free.
Over.
You're
it's
free.
Over. I'm as free as I'll ever be in life. I am floating on in the clouds.
And let Josh and I be clear here. This season has sucked.
Yes.
All joy covering a basketball team has been sapped out of both of us, and we are going on pure spite. I think it's safe to say that I am still a psychotic Mavs fan. I think you, after doing beat work for a while, still love the team from a big picture perspective, but doing this sometimes can really make it not fun.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the team has been miserable to watch for a month, and the idea of them falling ass backward into a play-in spot, so we'd have to maybe watch 2 more high leverage games, and who knows if they did that and made the play. Like it was time. We kind of knew this. How many podcasts have we done in the last 2 weeks where we've been like, hey, the season's over, but the season wasn't over yet.
Yep.
So we've known this is how it was going to end for a while, I think. But because mathematically, it just hadn't happened yet, we still had, at least I still felt like I had to put on the public face of, well, they can still do it and yada, yada, yada. And then, we put in a lot of work for these high leverage games, especially. I think the playoff coverage, I'm really proud of what I did last year for the playoffs, but that killed me. And the idea of doing that for a team that's not worth it was driving me up a wall. And that's not to say I was wishing for them to lose necessarily, or it's just.
No, of course not. But
when you're on the other side of it, when you're not a fan, when you're a fan, you can just go to bed after a game and not think about it anymore. It's just different. We have to work.
Yep.
And we both have jobs during the day that make it harder. So again, this team was just not good, and we don't have to pretend anymore. And we can just say, hey, they're not good. They didn't make the playoffs, and we can go from there.
Yeah, and this was a particularly special game. For anybody listening on recap, I'm still it's been 3+ years, and I'm still sort of figuring out who our core audience is, because, we're not like Nick and Isaac. I think we're a lot more, Nick and Isaac are both happy, positive dudes. I'm kind of a grumpy dude, and you're more pragmatic. And so it's I sometimes wonder who our audience is, even though we obviously have a audience that listens to us. We're very grateful. Shout out to all of you guys in the chat. But this season has been one where it felt so clear from the moment they lost Jalen Brunson where it would go. Now, how you would get there is a different point. I still didn't expect them to miss the playoffs. I just thought they would be a chore to watch. And things really happened in a hurry, and we should probably do a bigger deep dive. But today, with what happened, it was like a light dawned on everyone in the organization. And when we look at what happened over the past 48 hours, it's really kind of uncomfortable. Heading into the Kings game, Mark Cuban gives an interview an impromptu interview where media gathered around him. And he just, for all his media training, it might have been one of his worst moments as a Mavs owner, because he said things that were counter to the record of what was known. He also talked about Luka, and then he talked about Kyrie in a way that bounced off what he talked about with Brunson in a way that felt really just not disingenuous, but just sort of out of pace with reality. And it was very, so you go from that to winning the Kings game, which I don't think the Mavericks organization thought they were going to win the Kings game. Like, that's sort of what I feel in hindsight, because the Kings are a pretty good basketball team. You go from that to the next day, they finally hear back from the NBA that they're losing the protest to the Warriors, where in that protest, the Mavericks agreed in writing that it was Warriors ball, which I don't know why you would file the protest if that's what you agreed to. And it really was Cuban probably following through with a threat's wrong word, promise he made on national television, saying we were going to do this as a team. Then you go back and you come into this game and it's like, well, Luka's going to play. And not only did it feel like Luka was going to play, they have a deal with, I want to say, the Slovenian Tourism Board. And today was like a Slovenian Heritage Night. And having Luka apparently missed this game last year, which when you don't like business kerfuffle is basically what I'm driving at last year. And they couldn't have Luka miss again, nor did Luka really want to miss. And what I've been frustrated with everyone having the discourse the last 24 hours, like, oh, Luka doesn't quit. Luka doesn't, he knows better. But honestly, guys, Luka sat out 8 games in which the Mavericks lost, and he has say in whether he wants and whether he can play or not. And we wouldn't have gotten to this point had Luka just played in a few of those games. Now, I'm not holding him personally responsible for it, but when the time comes for the team to bench him and everybody else, that's just a business decision. Sorry, this is business. The $35 to $40 million you make, you hold that responsibility. Like, that's part of what you get for playing basketball, or in some cases, like Damian Lillard making $60 million to not play basketball for several games. I just, these last few days have been everything I don't like about basketball, everything. And it doesn't have anything to do with the actual basketball is what I'm going on.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about before we got on, there's probably we probably have 2 hours worth of material to go through from the last 24 hours, just in terms of things we can talk about.
Right.
Before we start getting to that kind of stuff, you want to just let's just talk about the game for a brief moment, and then we can kind of, because I mean, everything we're going to want to talk about is stuff that doesn't have to really do with the game, at least for me.
I feel like the game was kind of fun.
It was fun. I mean, it was objectively a pretty fun game. Mavericks made 18 threes, which is hilarious. They shot 55 threes, also hilarious. Thought they were going to win. I really did. I really thought they were going to win.
The real dividing line for me, so that first quarter Luka plays, scores 13 points in the first quarter, then 11 points. Then he scores the first basket of the second quarter. They take him out. The Maverick offense sort of ground to a halt for about 2 quarters. But the Mavericks, and this was the real funny part about this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the Mavericks back end bench was more talented than the Chicago Bulls back end bench.
Yeah. And even maybe not athletic talent, but they could Hardy and Holiday and Bertans and Morris can make jumpers in a preseason environment, which was what this game was. And you look at the guys that the Bulls were playing at the back of their bench, Taylor, Terry, Green, Derek Jones, none of those guys. And then who's their point guard? I can't say his last name. Dasumu.
Yeah.
He can't.
Yeah, I can't say it either.
None of the guys they played tonight, besides Vooch and White, and maybe Patrick Williams, none of those guys can shoot. And Vooch didn't play the whole game. They just didn't have shooters, even if they might be defensively more capable or athletically more capable. In a game like this, where it's low stakes, guys are just trying to get on the floor and show what they can do. It's like a preseason game. It really is.
The Bulls were locked in.
Shooting matters, just being able to make shots. And the Mavericks had more guys that could do that, and they had the lead. And then, funny enough, the guys that could make shots didn't see the floor a lot in the fourth quarter, which in
the second half.
Yeah. Bertans only played 15 minutes. Morris only played 8. and the Bulls closed with White and Patrick Williams, and they were by far the two best players.
I'm pretty sure Patrick
on the
Williams was
floor.
drafted 4th
Yeah,
at one point.
Yeah, he's got skill. He's a talented guy.
He realized, like, in the second half, the Bulls basically realized we should stop shooting these terrible jumpers and just relentlessly attack the paint.
The Mavericks were playing like Theo Pinson at the 5. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
The Bulls were 16 of 19 at the rim and 12 of 20 in the paint. So there you go.
Same old story. I mean, they figured it out. But Williams,
Williams.
The game honestly could have been over earlier, but Williams missed a lot of shots.
Yeah.
But it was something kind of a sight to behold, to where I clicked away. I didn't click away. I was just like, I started writing kind of the recap, and then all of a sudden the Bulls were down. The Mavericks' biggest lead was 15. And at one point it was the Bulls were up 8. So that's a 23-point swing in a tank fest. And it's really something. Really,
the Bulls
something.
Missed 4 free throws in the final minute of the game. But this game should have been 119, 118, 112. Like, there shouldn't have even been a chance at a game tying shot. But the
Bulls went on a 20-2 run. Thank you, PD Gaming.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, and it was just layups. It was White and Williams just scoring in the paint and getting drop offs to Taylor, who I've never heard of before. Shout out to
poor
him.
Guy. Woo, I'm glad for his sake making that dunk after poofing those free throws. That stuff, because it's like they were talking about this in the broadcast. Skin mentioned it after the game. And it's important to repeat. Players do not tank. They're going to take advantage of the minutes they could get. And all of those guys on both teams were playing really hard.
Yeah. I mean, Frank Ntilikina, McKinley Wright, Theo Pinson, AJ Lawson, Justin Holiday, Markieff Morris. None of those guys have contracts next year. They have to play. Like, they don't have the liberty to take a night off when they finally get an opportunity. Like, they might not be on the Mavericks next year, but they are absolutely trying out and trying to put some film up for teams that maybe could sign them next year. And then Jaden Hardy's a rookie. He doesn't know no better. Like, he barely gets to play sometimes. He's going to want to play. Like, the only guys that you could theoretically look at and be like, okay, they're probably not going to try that hard, or, Powell and Bullock, because, those are guys with multi-year
and
deals.
Bullock was in for a lot of the tank stuff, which sort of speaks to his
Reggie Bullock was
to affect winning.
He was a -27.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. One of the things I love about Indeed is it makes hiring all in one place so easy and streamlined so I can spend more time on the rest of my business. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. So the more you use Indeed, the better it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
This podcast is brought to you by AT&T Fiber with All-Fi. Something tells me that the guy watching sports for 13 hours straight on Sunday, who then stays up watching the recaps of those 13 hours, then calls his friends to talk about it, is definitely going to notice that half-a-second delay.
Get AT&T Fiber with All-Fi and watch sports any time of day from anywhere in your house. Live like a gigillionaire. Limited availability in select areas. Go to att.com/hypergig to check eligibility. Coverage may require extenders at additional charge.
It's just for a brief moment. First of all, guys, while you're here, thanks so much for joining the live stream. Really appreciate you. Please like that. Go ahead and hit subscribe, smash that like button. Want to get more people in here. We need to briefly touch on the fact that Reggie Bullock bought an island. I don't have anything else to say other than it allows for like just so many like Reggie Bullock Island in a literal sense. Anyways, I was pleased watching the game. I think my only real takeaway, and like there was some odd, like, look, I'm trying not to be I've really curtailed my in-game tweeting because I don't want to say anything that bites me in the ass. But I've been
for this game, like,
really for like the last 10, and I'm an avid live tweeter. But I see some I really love Mavs fans. I love y'all. I love the people that I interact with. But we got to stop acting like because guys are playing hard in a game that doesn't matter that any of these players are any good.
Oh my God, yeah.
I have precisely one takeaway from that game on the Mavericks side. It's number one that AJ Lawson has a lot of bounce. He looked bigger than he was in Summer League, and I watched him all the way back in Summer League and liked him. He is the only player that I want to see again in a Mavericks uniform. Everybody else, I don't like. McKinley Wright is a fantastically hard-playing player. He's too small. He can't shoot well enough. I'm sorry. I don't want to, like Theo Penson, our tanking center. You know, good luck next year, big guy, wherever you are. Hopefully it's not with the Mavericks. I'm not interested in this. So it's like, I see all these, the Mavericks have these guys who can play hard. Well, playing hard matters, but it only gets you so far when you don't have talent or enough talent, really.
This is not the environment to be like, be happy for the guys that played well and tried to show some things, but do not twist yourself into knots thinking they could have changed something about the season. Like, I mean, because also all these guys got chances during the season. Frank got chances. Holiday got chances.
Mm-hmm.
Morris had a couple games where they tried him out as a backup big. McGee started the season. Like, McKinley Wright played a pretty good amount when Luka was hurt.
McKinley Wright mattered.
The only guys that didn't play, that really didn't get an opportunity this season, were Lawson. And coincidentally, that's the one guy me and you really liked from this game in terms of like, that might actually be something to carry over. So like, I know that this season's frustrating and you want to look for something to blame and be like, how did this happen? And I get that, but do not look at this game and be like, man, if Frank was in the rotation, if AJ Lawson was a 20-minute per night guy, we would, season would have been different. Like, you just can't do that right now. Like, that's the bargaining stage or denial stage of grief. And I get it, but just don't let that you're going to drive yourself nuts thinking about that. Like, just try to get those thoughts out of your brain.
Well, I don't really know where we want to go next with this. Josh and I are avid preparers prior to the podcast. That's not true at all.
I have a couple things I'm like really angry about that I could go off on. I don't know where.
Let's just talk. Let's, I'll do my live show after. We're kind of. It's. I keep making the joke that we picked a hell of a time to start a lot like a video podcast, but we're going to do some off-season content. But like, frankly, we're not going to be talking 4 times a week anymore. So let's get these thoughts while we're thinking about it.
So I guess the big thing that's really bugged me today. I don't know what's going on with not just NBA Twitter, but just NBA analysts and watchers as a whole. But they all collectively lost their minds today when the Mavericks pretty much announced that they're tanking these last 2 games. The takes I've seen from people that I respect and think are smart people are some of the most embarrassing, like brain dead, melodramatic takes I've ever seen in my entire life. And I'm talking about like these people that are like, oh, the Mavericks they're making a mockery of the league by losing these last 2 games. This is shameful. This is disrespectful to the game. This is heinous. How dare the Mavericks? They should be fined. Are you fucking kidding me? It's 2 games. 2 games. They didn't take the half the season. They didn't take the month. They tanked.
No, they were bad.
Yeah, they tanked 2 games. And by the way, what they're playing for isn't the 8th seed, which gets you in the play. They're trying to backdoor into the 10th seed to be the 10th best team in the Western Conference. There are only 15 teams in the conference. Being 10th is not an accomplishment. That's not a great thing to be. You don't aspire to be 10th. Like, get out of here. Just really performative BS that I hate. I absolutely hate. And like, where was this when Portland shut down Dame?
That's
or Utah?
The real. See, that's
Utah gave up on
question.
Their season 2. Who fucking cares, man? And tanking's always going to happen. I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I'm glad the Mavericks are in a place where they need to lose 2 games in a row and sit their stars and make the product worse. But like, it's been going on since we've been alive. Like, Why are you getting mad about this? The Philadelphia 76ers put together one of the worst products I've ever seen for like 3 straight years.
Yeah.
And you're mad about 2 games when the season's already over?
Well, and the
best they could do is 10th. 10th. That's the best they could have done. Why are you getting so mad about it? It's 10th. Who gives a shit?
I spent a good portion of my day trying to explain to someone who's really smart that the Mavericks potentially having the 10th pick, even if that's all they get, gives them something heading into the offseason to where, and I don't know if we want to touch on this today, but the situation the Mavericks are in is as bad as it could have. Like, things have escalated so quickly. It's like everyone woke up yesterday.
This is how you know that not everyone watches all the teams.
Yeah, well, which is true. Yeah, because you and I have lived on this island. Me, the most loudest. That the Mavericks are a functioning disaster with Luka papering over all problems. That's been my deal. That is my. One could argue that's my whole fucking personality, and so that everyone's like freaking out about this today. Oh, they're losing. Oh, they could lose. I just didn't care. I didn't think they would lose. I thought they were incapable of losing because the team has such a high floor. What was the stat that you gave that they, with Luka Doncic playing a basketball game, they haven't been blown out since January?
Since January 5th was the last time they lost a double digit. January 5th was the last time they lost a double digit game with Luka.
January what?
5th.
So we're talking all January, all February, all March, 3 months.
3 months. Yeah.
God. So it's the Mavericks are this close. Like,
they were trying.
Yes. This whole conversation goes differently if Luka hasn't hit a game winner all season. That's insane compared to what he's did in his previous 4. The Mavericks, I think, had one game, like they had one time, it was Lakers game, where they got ahead on a final possession shot. Yeah. Now, they played 50. I mean, this was a clutch game too. They played 54 clutch basketball games this season.
55.
55.
Today was
and
55.
They've lost more than half of them, which is to say, like, there's some luck that's worked against them.
Yes, for sure.
And there's an element of that where when you talk about the luck, you just sort of wash your hands of it and say, okay, we're going to try again next year, because the Mavericks outperformed their Pythagorean win expectation last year, just basically decided by point differential. This year, the Mavericks they're getting whooped by it. Like, they probably should have won 3 to 4 more games, but they didn't.
Like, they're like, this is a shameful look for the organization. You know what was a shameful look for the organization? Losing 2 straight games to the Charlotte Hornets when you had all your guys. And it was the first 2 games you were fully healthy for the first time since like January or December. That's a bad look for the organization. Not trying to prevent losing a top 10 pick when your team is talent starved and it's 2 games. And by the way, even if you win those 2 games, it doesn't even matter, because the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to play a Memphis team on Sunday that has nothing to play for and is going to sit all their guys. And the OKC is probably going to win. And it doesn't even matter if you play Luka 40 minutes and you win these 2 games. It doesn't matter. OKC wins on Sunday, you're out. So again, spare me that this is some awful look for the Mavericks of the league. Just, it's an absolute joke. I hated it. I couldn't believe some of the things I was seeing people say. It just drove me nuts. And especially, like, dude, Kyrie's been playing on plantar fasciitis for like 2 weeks. What if he breaks his foot in one of these last 2 games and the OKC Thunder win on Sunday and the Mavericks miss playing? Oh, is that great? You happy now? Yeah. Like, come on. These guys are professional. Luka's been a professional basketball player since he's 13. You're telling me he can't handle 2 games when your ceiling is the 10th seed? Well, these guys are multimillionaires. They understand this. They're not babies or toddlers.
And look, the 2 games are, if Luka has a problem with the organization because of these 2 games,
he's got a problem with a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. Right. Like, that's the real thing where people are like ignoring the forest for the tree of this particular thing. Like, Luka should have a problem with how this team was constructed going back to 2019. You know, I've been in repeated arguments where somebody had the nerve to tell me today that Donnie Nelson was actually a really good GM. Okay, I like Donnie. Historically important to the Mavericks. Let's just say his last few years with the Mavericks were very bad. Congratulations to Dallas for selecting Luka 5th. What they pulled off there was pretty impressive. Like, actually really incredible, the fact that they lucked into it. But picking Luka was the easy choice. It was the easy choice the night of the draft, and anybody that says otherwise is afraid of Europeans and doesn't know how to draft. The end. Full stop. Brunson was an inspired choice, but more or less, what the Mavericks did for the better part of in the post-Dirk era was futz around. Now, whether that's Cuban or whether that's Donnie, you think I'm missing the point. The Mavericks have not, like, of the superstars that have come into the NBA in the last 20 years. So we're talking guys that were almost immediately all NBA players. Your Anthony Davises, your LeBron Jameses, your Luka Doncic's. Luka Doncic was set up for failure more than any other player. And yet he dragged a team to the Western Conference Finals in year 4. And then the ownership and the general managing team decided that what they needed was JaVale McGee. Everyone can get bent over this. I'm tired of having the same discussion. We're not going to play nice this summer over at Mavs Moneyball and here in Pod Maverick. I'm not a smart man, but you've got to stop peeing on my leg and telling me it's raining. And when I say you, I mean the various pundits and commentators that I deal with and that all of us talk to and are friends with. It's okay to criticize the Mavericks. That's really what this comes back to. And they know. And you know, I'm going to have a hard time. So like Brian in the chat says, talk to him, Kirk. Well, here's the real deal. Nobody wants to hear me being a shit for 3.5 months. There has to be some level of positivity. That's really why I wanted this pick. And they still might not get it. That's the other thing. But I wanted the opportunity because I want to talk about something different. Okay. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. If they have a top 10 pick, that's going to be awesome. I mean, if they get a top 10 pick, like they're going to be able to do things that I didn't think they were going to be able to do with the roster. And, you know, when we were talking about those bad off seasons in 2019 and 2020 and stuff like that, like, I mean, let's be real. Them getting a top 10 pick is a way for them to erase a lot of mistakes they've made the last 2 to 3 years.
And that's whether they use it for a player, which
or trade.
If they stay at 10th, seems unlikely just because I think you don't get a guy like you need somebody to play now, not 4 years from now. And there's my dog is killing me. Why do I have a dog? I hear her like grabbing something off the counter. You're going to solo for a second. I'm going to go see what Knucklehead has.
Okay. What am I talking about? Yeah, I mean, it's just weird. And when we talk about criticizing the team, you know, the thing with me, you know, I just don't like being perceived as like the negative. Like, if we could disagree about basketball takes, like that's fine. Like, I don't care if someone's like, I think you're wrong in terms of like, I think this basketball opinion is different than mine. It's when it's like people don't respect my work and just think that I'm just some blowhard negative guy that doesn't care. And that's the shit that really, really drives me up the wall. So again, like if someone wants to disagree with me about JaVale McGee basketball wise, okay, that's fine. I might not like it, but whatever, it's basketball. But when it gets past that and it's like, you know, your opinions are invalid because you're nothing but negative, that's when I'm like, all right, like I can't talk to you anymore. Like, that's the stuff I hate. And, you know, I mean, we don't want to be up here and being like, I told you so. Like none of us want to be like, it sucks. It's not fun.
Well, this gives us this what happens next. They play the Spurs Sunday, right? Win, lose, or draw, you know, they'll probably beat the Spurs. The Spurs are on like just a mat, like they're nobody tanks like the Spurs.
But to me, the Spurs don't. That game doesn't matter. Like in the tank standings for the Spurs, they're locked into third worst record. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I don't know what that means, but you know, they're not going to play anyone either. But it's just saying that they're locked into third worst record. So,
right. I've got it. I'm going to go put my dog in the crate. This is how we live stream. Lila Rose, come here. Come here. Come here. We're going to put you on the live stream and you're going to give your Mavs takes. She's just like eating stuff through the couch. This is killing me. So I apologize. This is just terrible live streaming. Nothing makes me more upset. Well, my wife wasn't feeling good, so I had to put her make her go to sleep.
No, you're all good.
Stop it.
I think, man, it's just been a wild season. And again, like when I say like I'm free and I don't have to think about this team again, that's not me like being glad that the team is bad. It's just, you know, we work second jobs. It's going to be not like, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to enjoy being able to sleep from the rest of this month and May, where last year I was staying up late. Now it was worth it because the team was awesome winning games, but you know, I don't want to do that when they're bad. So that's how it is. Are you okay?
I'm fine. Like we each have bully breed dogs, and this one finds a thing to eat every time. I just went over there and she had a piece of mail. She's on the couch. How does a dog get whatever? That's not why we're here. I'm glad that there's some finality. I honestly was a little sad I'm very sad that things started to go sideways, because what we did in the playoffs last year was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was where we had some of our biggest team building moments. Like we grew our community. We talked with lots of people. We produced great work. And now we don't get to do that. That part's disappointing to me.
Yeah, that's when we get the most eyeballs on everything, aside from like off season and trade deadline. So, yeah, that part sucks for sure.
Well, is there anything from the past 2 days news wise that we want to hit on before we close?
What have we not? I mean, the ridiculous takes about the tanking got to me. Oh, you probably want to talk about Kidd, right? And what he said before the game.
Well,
right?
I need to
you were pretty fired up.
One of the things about the post game stuff is difficult when you and I do this, because we tend to not see the post game quotes till after we're done. We go live almost immediately.
No, I'm talking about the stuff before the game that you got fired up.
So
about.
before the game, Brad Townsend asked Kidd how the players feel about like the decision, and they asked him some more questions, because when a team rests players like this, particularly a team that was still in where they were, it becomes one of these things where everybody has to answer questions quickly. And the Mavericks were in a spot where Kidd has to answer, why are you tanking? Basically, more or less. And he used words in his answer. He used management and they, and he talked about it in a way that gave you the impression that he either didn't play a role in the decision, or he said that that he disagreed with it. And that is one of those things that frustrates me, because it's not like there's this big management team the Mavericks have. They have the ability to figure this stuff out easily. And of course, what happens is Kidd just, he shows that he's not, or he claims he's not responsible. And that stuff drives me nuts.
It reminds me of The Office, like whenever Michael Scott would like pretend that he wasn't part of, like he was like one of the workers and not management. It's really what it reminds me of. It's so funny. It is funny because it's like you're the coach. You definitely were involved in those like the idea that he wasn't talking with Cuban and Nico about sitting Luka and Kyrie like is absurd. Like the idea that those decisions were made like over his head. Like maybe he didn't want to do it, but like he was obviously part of those conversations.
Yeah.
If he actually wasn't, then there's a big problem. But that's another topic.
And honestly, I could just be being like, I have a Kidd bias. I could just be reading too into it. So maybe I'm just wrong here. I mean, the fact that they went out and he played the lineups that he did means he was getting the message. I'll probably read some stuff and figure out what some Kidd's post-game commentary was between this and our live show, which we'll start soon.
I did see he did say something about like a lot of these guys aren't going to be back next season.
Yeah.
He's pretty honest about that's the one thing I've liked about Kidd since he's been here, is that he has been brutally honest about these guys that we've been like, they're not talented enough. And he knows, like, he totally knows, like, he might not be a coach that we like in terms of, being able to lead the team, but he knows these guys, he knows these guys aren't good. Like these role players that the Mavericks have been trying to pass next to Luka since 2019, 2018. Like he knows,
right.
Like, they've been building off the island of misfit toys for like 4 or 5 years now. Like almost all of their acquisitions are guys that other teams didn't want or undrafted free agents. Like it's time to get some pedigree next to Luka, and you can do that with the 10th pick, or more or higher. So we have to look forward to now.
And looking forward, because what we really have to look forward to is the draft lottery, which I don't think occurs until the conference finals. So we got like several weeks. Like 4, I think. I don't know. Let me just Google this. NBA draft lottery 2023.
I think it's like during the first round or something.
Yeah, when does the dang thing happen? Will take place Tuesday, May 16th. So nearly 5 weeks from now. We got a long time. which means we have nearly 5 weeks to wishcast and to panic and to get really excited about all sorts of things.
Click on Tankathon simulations.
Repeat like 10,000 times. Nick Angstad had a great take where he's like, I'm pretty sure they're like data mining because I've gotten the Mavericks jumping to 1 repeatedly despite having a 10% chance. I'm like, maybe so.
Funny. Maybe.
Anyhow, hey, our man Akiva is in the chat. That's exciting. We're gonna have to get him up here for the live show next. Speaking of that, all right. I think Josh and I are gonna be done. We'll be back on Sunday, of course. But what I would love for you to do in the meantime is go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you haven't. We're inching closer to the monetization level. Now, granted, I don't really know what that means. And then we will be doing a live show here in about 25 minutes, maybe. Like, I'll try to get it closer to the top of the hour. I got some Mavs Moneyball work I got to do. But if you hit subscribe and then hit the bell, you'll get notified when we go live. This is probably our biggest live stream yet, which is fun. Appreciate you guys hanging out. I really want you to come back and hang out and give me your takes. That's where I get the, as much as I love talking to Josh, I also talk to Josh 82 times a year on a show, plus every day in Slack. I don't get to talk to you guys all that much. So come hang out. And anything before we close, Josh?
No, enjoy your live show. I have a feeling you're going to have a spicy one tonight. So
We'll see. It's always a mixed bag. I mean, everybody, the best is we got a young man who called in from Saudi Arabia last week, which was like it was like the middle of the night for him, and he was like 22 years old. It's great.
He's staying up watching these crappy Mavs games.
That's what I told him. I was like, "What are you doing?" It was fun though. Everybody, come back in. All right, we will hang out a little later. Thanks so much for joining Pod Mavericks After Dark, and we will talk with you soon. Bye, guys.